Welcome to the Elevate podcast, brought to you by the Registered Master Builders. Each week we explore the ideas and practices that help us get the best from our businesses, our teams and ourselves. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. We talk to experts, advocates and business owners in the construction industry to share their knowledge, insights and experiences to help you build a better business and enjoy a better life. Now let the business building begin. David, great to have you on the Chiefs Chat episode of the Elevate podcast. Welcome along to today's session.
Yeah, g'day Ryan, how are you?
Yeah, look, we're good. We're at the time of recording, cyclone Gabrielle has just swept through the North Island, creating destruction and carnage around the place. And certainly our thoughts go out to those people that have been materially affected. We've had unfortunately, some deaths associated with the cyclone, but also a lot of displaced people, etc. What are you hearing from members and presidents around the country at the moment?
Yeah, look, first of all, just initial reaction. We had all hoped that this year might be a bit steadier state. We've got some challenges around what's happening in the industry that we'll talk about shortly, but the storms over the last couple of weeks have really, I think, been very, very challenging for those who are right in the centre of them. Initially, obviously, Auckland, Northland, Coromandel, but Cyclone Gabrielle, more widespread again and very damaging. And it'll take a while to know exactly what that looks like, because for the construction sector, you've then got to break it down. But just at a human level, it's having lived in Gisborne for a number of years, having lived in the Waikato, having lived in a few different places when they've had these sorts of events, it's very, very challenging. And also what we saw in Christchurch just over a decade ago, very different event, but it's really at that human level, your families, etc., are just people having to deal with that first. In terms of, as I say, right now we're at the tail end of it, but we're still trying to understand what that means. And talking to a couple of our presidents and branches, particularly in Hawke's Bay, really at the moment, they're just struggling with a whole bunch of things: lack of power, lack of communication, questions about existing projects, whether they can keep going, whether they need to pause them, can they get their teams around, even within a region like the Hawke's Bay. They've got to look after the health and safety of their teams, and then communicating with their clients. So really, really challenging right now, particularly the residential sector is what we're hearing, not so much the commercial at this stage, but it's just very difficult. So we're just trying to understand. We'll certainly be communicating and have started with central government just to make sure they understand some of the business needs that some of our members may need, because there will be disruption in some cases, and there'll be pockets. It may be several weeks, and so that's going to put a real strain on the business in terms of cash flow and employment situations. So we will need government agencies to be aware that the construction sector is affected by this, along with many others, of course, and to give whatever support they can. And then within our network, as we learn more, reaching out more broadly within the Master Builders Network to see if others are able to help out. But we've got to get that timing right, because if people rush in at the moment, they may just be getting in the way, because transport is a massive issue, as we know, even getting to a region. But then if you're there, where do you stay? So there's no easy way to say this will take some time.
And certainly there may be some of our members looking at what's the contractual impact of this kind of event. Would certainly encourage people. Yep. We're partnered with Hazelton Law. They have a free phone option to at least have a first 10-15 minute consultation around maybe aspects of the contract. Would certainly encourage people to call, and they can access that number on the Elevate platform.
Absolutely. MB have put out some useful guidance around contracts, mainly that's targeted at the larger commercial contracts, but some of those principles apply. And as you say, Hazelton Law will be able to quickly assist with how you make sure you protect your position. The key thing will be connecting with clients, communicating with clients. This is not new. We've been through this with COVID.
And it is unfortunate that we're starting this podcast off on this note, David. As you said in the intro, we kind of hope this year would be better. It's important that our members have strong financial practice, that we are aware that there are some challenging times ahead, not just from our recent weather events, but also because of what we know is going on in the economy, etc. Wonder, can you give us your view currently at maybe a bit more of a macro level? What are you observing is going on in the economy and how it might affect our members?
Yeah, so I think there are two big things this year. One is the economy, as you say. We've been talking about for a while that because of high inflation, which is hopefully plateauing, but it's still high interest rates, it means that homeowners are a little bit more careful about whether they want to build new right now. And the gap between buying and existing in a new build has made that a little bit more challenging. Plus consumers just being a little bit wary, trying to be optimistic. The material prices are still increasing, but they have slowed down. And the latest stats data and core logic data bear that out, where while it's still increasing, the last quarterly inflation for products was only about half of what the quarterly inflation of the previous one was. So that's encouraging, but still some upward pressure on wage and other costs around transport and so on and so forth. So it's still there, but I'm more optimistic than I was a few months ago, certainly at the end of last year. But it's still something that has to be managed. It's likely that interest rates will stay up for some time. The Reserve Bank will be cautious. They won't want to start dropping and then find they have to raise them again. So I think, some of that is known. It's not going to suddenly get magically better, but it should at least get into a more steady state. So it is the same messages. Have to manage your finances. Have to think about what the size of your business needs to look like. How do you manage your overheads? What level of staffing do you need right now for the work you've got in front of you? So those are decisions that still have to be made. And I think a lot of people are, and there's still time to make those decisions, but it can't be just left in the too hard pile. So those same things, we're still looking at the information we can get, getting information out to members, working on advice. We'll continue to do that, right over the course of this year, I suspect. The other big issue is this year is the election. Obviously, fairly significant news with the former Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, stepping down. But it doesn't really change anything from our point of view in terms of what the major issues are. So the major issues are still around the economy, cooling cycle, the underlying issues around a boom-bust cycle, which I think governments and the opposition parties now get is something that we do need to be more active about. So that's promising. We're still working hard on that. Building consenting is still a big issue, but I'm feeling more confident now than I have for several years that there's a real desire at government level, both ministers and from officials, that they need to change the system and to make it more consistent around the country, to look at how you reward good behaviour, so those who do a good job. So I'm much more comfortable. This is going to take a bit of work to get it right, because you don't want to rush it and make more mistakes. But that's an area we'll keep hammering on and focusing on. And then there's a number of other issues. I mean, the floods and climate change and RMA are really front and centre again. I think for climate change, though, it's as much about how do we as a nation respond to this stuff? So infrastructure is critical, and while that's not normally a critical part of what Master Builders does and advocates for, we need to be part of that conversation, because it's all very well, we build houses and schools and so on and so forth, but if they all get flooded, that's a real problem. So we need to be part of that conversation, and it's quite complex. We're certainly interested in what's happening with the RMA reforms. Very complex. I think everyone's confused, but we're talking to a number of different parties about what that might look like and how we get better clarity, because it directly impacts us, particularly the residential sector. So there's some big chunky things in there, but we're going to focus on 4 or 5 key areas and be talking to all of the political parties about our ideas and challenging them actually to come up with some policy, because there's not a lot of policy out there at the moment. Everyone's keeping their powder dry, but we'll certainly be in there, Ryan.
Good to hear. So David, we've gone right from how we can help members in what's going on right now, and we have a webinar coming up for our members around how to manage those financial practices. We have a fantastic host or guest with us on that, I should say, Luke Gemes from Next Advisory, very pragmatic guy. Will be able to give lots of good tips that you can kind of implement straight away, because we know as a busy construction business owner,
you can be very, very busy dealing with the here and now, and of course with the impact of recent weather events, that can be more more capacity taking than ever. But the need to get your head up out of the water, figuratively speaking, and look further ahead and think about things like how much build pipeline do I have once the next one or two projects are completed, what's coming up after that, and what might my business look like if we don't secure additional work, etc. So we've got a full webinar coming up dedicated to helping the members around that one.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you mentioned there, the critical thing is, what we've tried to get is someone who's practical and understands the construction sector. It's not some theory. It might be challenging for some people, but it is based on, here's some things you can do, and it will make a difference to your business. Because if we get too high level, people are just lost. I think the other thing, Ryan, we should say is, we really encourage our members to tune into that and listen and ask questions, but also your staff, your key staff, perhaps your finance staff. It doesn't just have to be the owner of the business, because all of our businesses operate as teams. So I really encourage people to get others on that call or other calls so that they understand what they need to do as a team.
Great point there, Dave. Thank you. And then great to hear that Master Builders is working at that, government policy advocating, getting involved with RMA and building consent changes. Of course, those things are very, very hard for any one of our members to influence by themselves. Impossible, in fact.
Yep.
So great to hear that you're doing more. Is there any more detail you can maybe give us in exactly how Master Builders is getting involved in the RMA reforms? What are you doing right now?
Yeah. So we've made a submission, and we've talked to a number of others about what they're seeing. It is complex, and one of the things that we were trying to get our head around is, look, are we alone in not understanding this? If there's one comfort, we've talked to a number of experts who have been involved in RMA planning for a long period of time. They're all confused. The primary thrust of our submission, of many others, is it lacks detail. So we need to be clear about who's actually going to be doing the new planning rules at a regional level. How's that going to be done? Who's going to be implementing it? And one of the things that we've put in our submission is that one of the failures under RMA in the past is that so much of this was left at the local level, and there were things called national policy statements that were meant to be done at central government level, and they were done too slowly or not at all. One of our big concerns is that that can be replicated. It'll just happen all over again. So we need some confidence that it's going to change. We also need some confidence that if the laws are changed, that the minister of the time will actually do their job and not just sit back and say, no, I don't feel like doing it. So a lot of it is putting questions back through the select committee about matters of detail, and because you can't really argue some of this stuff if there isn't sufficient detail to understand it. And that's where it is. I don't think there's any question that the RMA is a problem and has to change. But before they rush in and change it, let's understand what it looks like. We've also talked to our working groups, our commercial working group, and more particularly our residential working group, who are very interested in this area, and got some feedback from them.
Right. And David, as we head in, outside of those things you've already talked about, is there anything else you'd like to make the members aware of that you or the team are particularly focused around currently?
Well, things get overtaken. Often the beginning of the year, you feel like, okay, you've got a little bit of time to do a bit of thinking. And I think just the weather events have overtaken that to a certain extent. But, trying to turn that into something useful, it does demonstrate that, quality building in the right place, good infrastructure is so vital. And so we need to be part of that. So quite a lot of thinking about that, and we've been testing some of these ideas with others. People have been thinking about things around how do you fund infrastructure, for instance. People have been thinking about that for a long time. In my experience, having been in central and local government, that question's been around for a long time, has not been settled. I think now, hopefully this will give the impetus that whoever's in power, whichever party, they come together to say, look, we've got to solve this as a country. So we will, that's an area that's, I've come to the conclusion we have to be more closely involved in. but we can't do this on our own, so we need to work with others.
David, I'd be delighted if you make some progress there. I've got a stormwater drain at the bottom of my property, which just every opportunity backflows into my garage. So I'd be delighted if you.
Well, I do know
for us.
I do know the chief executive of Master Plumbers, so I'll suggest he comes around and gives you a hand.
Yeah, I think at the moment all I need is Master Pumpers rather than Master Plumbers, but that's all right. We have figured out how to move quite a significant volume of water. Hey, look, thank you for those insights. We would certainly continue to encourage our members to get on to Elevate, a huge amount of resources on there for them. Reach out to your local Master Builders branch. Talk to the presidents. Collectively, there's courage found in the group. So talk to the other members there, see how you can help each other out. Some of you will definitely be able to take on some additional work because there will be immense amount of repairs. When you look at some of the flood damage across the country, there's going to be a huge demand for some building requirement to help repair those things. So
that really good points, Ryan. And look, Master Builders have been around for a long time. We've got a lot of experience through our membership. People have been through different events. We do get through these things, but lean on other people. That is how it helps. And I wasn't going to mention, but I will mention, showing my age a bit, but I was involved working for Gisborne City Council when Cyclone came along. We were very isolated there, just as Gisborne and the Hawke's Bay are right now. But, we worked through, and as a community in that case, worked it through. Same with the Master Builders community. People know people in their region and all around the country, and so this is a time when that strength needs to be lent on and used.
Absolutely. So encourage the members, get out there, get involved, talk to your local branches, jump on Elevate, use the resources there. David, thanks so much for your update today, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next Chiefs Chat.
Pleasure. Thanks, Ryan. Take care, everyone.